Yeah, I'm back. Hi, hello, and welcome in to the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Yes, the Ball Don't Lie podcast is back, and there's a lot of new elements to this podcast, including video. I'm looking into a camera right now, not something I've ever done while recording the podcast, but I'm happy to say Ball Don't Lie is back. And you might be wondering, well, where have you been for the last couple of years? The last episode I made was following the Bengals' loss in Super Bowl 56 to the Los Angeles Rams. That was not only a heartbreaking loss, but also a tumultuous time, I think, going on in my personal life as I was trying to figure some things out, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to put all my effort and energy into Cincy 360 on ESPN 1530, and I've done that, and I continue to do that, and I'm very happy with where that show is at. It's grown exponentially. Tony and I have seen a lot of success, and we're very happy about that. But now I have a little bit more time to get back into doing this, which I've always kept it on the back burner. If you have an eagle eye, maybe you've been paying attention over the last couple of months as I've been preparing to bring this podcast back. And I figured, should I wait until after Super Bowl 59 between the Chiefs and the Eagles, or should I just make an episode right now? Because there's one thing that keeps coming back to my mind, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes winning the national championship. If you're new here, I'm Austin Elmore. I'm from Sydney, Ohio. I live in Cincinnati. I'm on the air weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. on ESPN 1530. I co-host a show called Cincy 360. I'm also heard on 700 WLW as a part of Reds broadcasts, Reds post-game broadcasts, I should say, Bengals post-game broadcast. I'm all over the Reds and Bengals coverage of 700 WLW, ESPN 1530, iHeartMedia Cincinnati. I'm also a producer and have been doing this for 6-7 years now. So that's my background. If you're new here, if you're one of the first ones, I started this podcast when I first kind of got into radio and had all the equipment at my hands and had all this opportunity, and I wanted to make a name for myself, and I started putting that stuff out there, and it helped me a lot to get to where I'm at today. And now I have a chance to kind of just make this a little bit more, I don't know, the way I want to do it. And I don't know. I don't know exactly how it's going to go on the Ball Don't Lie podcast. It sounds different. It looks different. It's going to feel different, I hope, because this is an entirely new iteration. Let's talk about the national championship game. And I do also want to preface, these things keep coming to my mind. Primarily, we're going to talk about the Bengals. The Bengals are my thing. I love the Bengals with every fiber of my being. I want to continue to work in that realm. I want to ultimately be working in the National Football League and all that sort of stuff. Like, that's like my dream. Always been my pipe dream, right? And so I care deeply about the Bengals. I cover the Bengals on a daily basis with our show. And so most of the time, and most of the episodes coming up, are going to be about the Bengals. But also, I also want to make episodes kind of that reflect some of the stuff that's going on in my life, some of the stuff that's going on in my mind, other stuff obviously happening inside the sports world. Like, I want to talk about all those things. So that's my plan, to do that over the next however long this run of Ball Don't Lie goes. So there'll be a little bit of everything, but the primary flavor will be the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay, now to pivot completely back to college football. The Buckeyes are national champions. The last episode I made, it was the Hangover from Super Bowl 56. And looking back on it, I was just so happy that the Bengals actually made a run. I was so happy that I got to see that and experience that in my lifetime. I was amped that I got to watch a Super Bowl with my dad and with my friends, and I have those moments that I always get to come back to. Jermaine Pratt's interception, the Jamar Chase catch to put the Bengals in field goal range in Tennessee, Mike Hilton batting down that ball, Jesse Bates' interception, the Sam, not even in that season, but the Sam Hubbard yard dash, just moments. Evan McPherson multiple times kicking game winners to send the Bengals to the Super Bowl. Joe Mixon threw a pass in the Super Bowl that was caught for a touchdown. T. Higgins had a 70-yard touch. Like, all these moments that I will always be able to look back on fondly. And I remember just being so happy to be there. And the gravity of, you may not get back here for a while, hadn't really hit me. And it especially hadn't hit me because the following season, the Bengals went right back to the AFC Championship game, and they were a win away from the Super Bowl. And I should have had a little bit more context, a little bit more understanding of how hard it is to get to the big game. Number one, I'm a Bengals fan. It was the first time in 30 years that they'd actually gone to the Super Bowl. Number two, I've just experienced it. I had been experiencing it with Ohio State. 2014, Urban Meyer, second year, gets Ohio State to, or his third season, I should say, takes Ohio State to the national championship game, and they win it. And here I am, seeing all this, seeing Urban Meyer as the top coach in college football, and all these great players that are now shuffling into the NFL, and all these great recruits that keep coming back, and I'm thinking, gosh, this is going to be the golden age of Buckeye football. We're going to win a lot of national championships. We're going to be like Alabama and Nick Saban. Like, we are so here. And fast forward 10 years ago, 10 years later, here we are now, the first time we've won a championship since. It's hard to win. It's hard to get to the mountaintop over and over and over again. I think that's why I have so much respect for Nick Saban and Alabama. I have so much respect for Tom Brady and the dynasty of the New England Patriots. I have so much respect for what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing right now. More on them later in another episode. But appreciating and not taking any of the winning for granted. Like, that's something I've learned a lot over the last couple of years. Appreciate every single win. Every single moment. It doesn't matter if it's ugly. It doesn't matter if it's a blowout. It doesn't matter. Appreciate the win. Appreciate winning. Because you never know how long it's going to be. You don't know how long it's going to take to get back to where you want to go. The Bengals have certainly taught me that lesson, but I also learned it with Ohio State. And it made the championship, the national championship, over Notre Dame so much sweeter. Just a couple of weeks ago. I guess it's a couple of weeks now. A couple of days. I don't know. It's been like 2 weeks. Either way, it makes it so much sweeter because you know how hard it is and you don't know when the next one's coming. So you don't take it for granted. You do buy the t-shirts and you buy the stickers and you buy the pennants and you keep buying the clothes and you just appreciate a national championship because football brings people together. Like it just over and over and over again, it brings people together. I said this on the air. Like, for me, for my friends, football, and Ohio State football specifically, we always just gather to watch the Buckeyes together. It could be in somebody's backyard. It could be in somebody's living room. It could be at a bar. We just gather to watch the Buckeyes. That's something that brings us together. And so to be able to experience that, a national championship, reaching the mountaintop, I'm never taking that for granted. I'm appreciating it. But to reach a mountaintop, you got to go through some stuff, right? Like, it's not going to be easy. There are peaks, there are valleys, there are treacherous terrain, to say the least. And one of those things that the Buckeyes had to face, that we as Buckeyes fans have had to face, is the last several years of losing to Michigan. And I know, I'm tired of it getting brought up. I'm tired of did I say brought up? Did I create a word? I'm tired of it getting brought up. I hated that in the midst of Ohio State celebrating a national championship, they talked about the Michigan loss. I hate that Michigan fans will always have that over Ohio State. And when the Buckeyes lost to Michigan again this time around, after this $20 million that had been spent on their roster, and after probably knowing this is the most talented team in college football, and they have a real shot to win the national championship, I was heartbroken. Much like most of Buckeye Nation. Heartbroken frustrated, angry, mad. I was one of those people calling for Ryan Day's job. That's how I felt at the time. And as I sat with it, and as I tried to come to terms with it, I was given some perspective by my friend Joe Daneman from Fox 19 in Cincinnati. By the way, Ohio Sportscaster of the Year. Shout out to Joe if you're listening to this. I was texting with him after the game, just devastated, hurt, upset, angry, mad. And in the couple of days after the game, as we continued our conversation, he brought up the perspective to me that shifted the way I view the Ohio State-Michigan game and that rivalry, and also how I view Ohio State moving forward. And I had never thought about this before. For most of my life, excuse me while I take a drink. I got a cup of Joe here. How about that? That might be a staple on these episodes too. For most of my life, and for most of Ohio State fans' lives, the Ohio State-Michigan game had significant ramifications on the postseason. It was almost always an extremely meaningful game that would either help you or hurt you in your chance to win the national championship. Part of the reason why I loved the 4-team college football playoff and did not want it to expand was because of the pressure it put on every game in the college football regular season, and as an Ohio State fan, how much pressure it put on the final game of the year. I live and die by that game. So many Ohio State fans do. And another thing that people need to understand, because people are calling us crazy, we're freaking out about losing this game again. That rivalry is not a rivalry about football. That is a rivalry about hate. And if you're not brought up in it and around it and experiencing it, you just can't understand. That's why people were so deeply moved by losing that game again and how hurtful that was. But because of that, all of that culminates in the fact that for years, one team had the chance to end the other team's season, essentially, take away their national championship hopes, right? And that's why I love the 4-team playoff. It put pressure on every game. It demanded perfection. I thought it oftentimes led to actually getting the best team to be the national champion. And we can talk extensively about the 12-team college football playoff. I don't like it. I don't like automatic bids. I don't like the way it's formatted. Sure, they're going to change it. I think automatic bids in and of themselves are asinine. I want the 12 best teams. If it's 12 SEC teams, it's 12 SEC teams. If it's 10 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams, okay, whatever. I don't care. There shouldn't be some bum Pac-2 school getting a bid. There shouldn't be a Mountain West school getting a bid unless there is proof and definitive proof over and over and over again that this is one of the best teams in the country. College football eventually will be the way the National Football League is now. There'll be a governing body, there'll be conferences, there'll be divisions, there'll be profit sharing with TVs and free agency and the portal. It's all eventually going to be there, but it's not right now. So we can't, and unlike SEC fans, I'm not going to speak in hypotheticals, right? I'm only going to focus on what we know for sure. And that is, right now, it's a flawed system. But that flawed system has now devalued the Ohio State-Michigan game. Because as we've seen, you can lose that game and still win the national championship. And that is a tough pill to swallow for Buckeye fans. Because you still want to win, and you should want to win. I absolutely stand by that, believe that, hate Michigan with every fiber of my being. I want to beat them. I think a lot of Ohio State fans do. But now, you can't live and die by that game anymore. The bigger picture has to be winning national championships. That's always what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to have been. In the last several years, 40 years or 50 years or 60 years or whatever it's been, there was no national championship without beating Michigan. Now, those two things are separated. And I've been sitting with that and trying to deal with that because it's not easy to just say, oh, hey, here's this thing that you've always done and it's always had meaning and always this and always that. But it doesn't mean that much anymore. You can still you can still reach your goals without doing that. It's like if you want to lose weight and be healthy, you got to diet and exercise, right? Okay, great. Well, now if you want to lose weight and be healthy, you just have to take Ozempic. So it's like, wait, I don't actually have to do any of the work. I can just pay some money and take this injection or whatever it is and then lose all the weight and look great. See, you see what I'm saying? You see the point that I'm trying to make here? And so that's been difficult for me to kind of deal with. But I didn't think, when Ohio State lost to Michigan, I thought to myself, even if they win the national championship, it's going to feel hollow. I was wrong. It feels fantastic. Winning that game, beating Notre Dame, another rival of Ohio State for a long time, storied history between the two, especially in our area of the country. Just molly-whopping Oregon like it was nobody's business. Beating Texas and Steve Sarkisian in an iconic play, Jack Sawyer scoop and score. Dismantling Tennessee at home, even though they had a bunch of people at Ohio Stadium. I mean, how satisfying is that? All the numbers about beating top 5 teams and going through this run and this long stretch of the college football playoff. I mean, gosh, it felt awesome. It felt awesome. Even without beating Michigan, it felt awesome. And I don't know why this has just been sitting with me, and I wanted to talk about it because it's like I learned something about myself and am continuing to wrestle with it while also enjoying a championship. And I think the perspective is important moving forward. That, yes, the Michigan game means a lot and will always mean a lot, but the outcome of that does not necessarily mean the end goal isn't in reach. So essentially, we've devalued the greatest rivalry in all of sports. That doesn't really sit well with me, but it's the fact of the matter. It's the college football world that we live in now. And I think that perspective is important because I think, people love to bitch and moan about college athletics. They love to bitch and moan about NIL and the transfer portal, and there's plenty to be upset about. But the fundamental fabric of the game of college football is changing, and change sucks. I've talked about this in my personal life. I've talked about this in sports. Like, I'm not good at change. And this is another thing that has changed about sports, about college sports, that we now have to deal with. But don't let it take away from the satisfaction of winning a national championship. And don't let it take away from the fact that the goals can still be in reach. And maybe in the end, it actually will and can be a good thing. It's just something to think about. Short and sweet for episode number 1 of the Ball Don't Lie pod. I said Ball. I also said episode 1. This isn't episode 1. This is like episode something. I don't even know what. Hold on. Let me check my phone. See, this is how it works here in today's day and age. I'll just check my phone here and see. This is going to be episode number what? 123. 123. How about that? This has been episode number 123 of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. You can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, and yes, even on TikTok at Audie Elmore. That's AUTYELMORE. And you can listen to me weekdays from 12 to 3 with my co-host Tony Pike. It's called Cincy 360. It's on ESPN 1530. You can find it live on the iHeartRadio app. And you can listen to the podcast of the show in case you miss it anywhere you get your podcasts. And I invite you to listen each and every weekday. Thanks so much. I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about next week. Probably some Bengals off-season conversation. I look forward to it, and I hope you do too. Thanks for listening to the Ball Don't Lie podcast.